In a move that captured global attention, Russian leader Vladimir Putin has publicly proposed a change to nuclear arms control. He has offered to extend the New START Treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms pact, between Russia and the United States, for one additional year past February 2026. This proposal is not an unconditional gesture from Moscow. Instead, it comes with a clear condition. Russia will commit only if the United States reciprocates. That creates mutual obligation, putting the choice on leaders in Washington and in Moscow. The timing is significant: heightened geopolitical friction and deep mistrust. The war in Ukraine is ongoing, and a chasm has opened between Russia and NATO. A temporary continuation could signal Russia isn't fully abandoning global security frameworks. It may be an attempt to keep high-level dialogue channels open, to preserve some predictability. This is not just a technical arms control issue. It's a major political and strategic event. It forces the US administration and the world to ask hard questions about engaging Russia. Can nuclear security be compartmentalized from other disagreements, like territorial sovereignty and international law? Or would an agreement risk legitimizing actions while yielding little? The new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, commonly known as New START, serves as a fundamental pillar of global security. At its core, the treaty establishes clear, verifiable limits on the number of strategic nuclear warheads the United States and Russia can deploy. Diagram: cap on deployed warheads. Diagram: deployed missiles and bombers. Diagram: total launchers. It also constrains delivery systems, intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, heavy bombers equipped for nuclear armaments. By capping these arsenals, the treaty aims to prevent an unchecked, spiraling arms race. Beyond numeric caps, the treaty's real power is its verification regime. It mandates mutual inspections and data exchanges, creating confidence each side adheres to limits. This transparency is the bedrock of strategic stability. Inspectors are granted access to the other's nuclear bases to physically count warheads and delivery systems, ensuring declarations match reality. Into this highly structured and tense environment of international diplomacy, a strikingly informal comment from a major political figure reverberated widely. When asked about Vladimir Putin's offer for a one-year extension of the New START Treaty, former US President Donald Trump offered a simple, off-the-cuff response. Sounds like a good idea. These 5 words, delivered without the usual diplomatic framing or cautious caveats, immediately drew significant attention. International observers, policymakers, media outlets around the globe. The casual nature of the remark stood in stark contrast to the gravity of the subject. Yet its political weight was undeniable. The comment gained immediate traction, particularly within Russian state-controlled media among certain officials in Moscow. It was quickly framed as a sign of potential common sense and a hopeful indicator of a future US administration's willingness to engage constructively with Russia on matters of strategic stability. For a Kremlin eager to find cracks in Western consensus, Trump's words were presented as evidence that a different, more pragmatic approach to US-Russia relations might be on the horizon. This interpretation served Moscow's narrative that the current tensions are primarily the fault of the incumbent US administration, rather than a result of Russia's own actions on the world stage. The reason Trump's remark carries such weight stems from several factors. First, as a former president and a prominent political figure, his opinions continue to influence a significant portion of the American electorate and shape political discourse. His words signal a potential policy direction that could diverge sharply from the current administration's more cautious and conditional approach. Second, his history of favoring direct leader-to-leader negotiations and his expressed skepticism of traditional alliances and treaties make his perspective on a deal with Putin particularly noteworthy. Leaders around the world, allies, adversaries, listen closely for clues about the future of American foreign policy. This episode highlights the profound impact that even seemingly minor comments from influential leaders can have on delicate international negotiations. The potential expiration of the New START Treaty without a successor or an extension would push the world into a new and profoundly dangerous era of strategic instability. The most immediate and predictable consequence would be the complete removal of any legal constraints on the deployed strategic nuclear arsenals of the United States and Russia. This could ignite a new, full-blown arms race, as both nations might feel compelled to expand their nuclear forces to gain a perceived advantage or simply to avoid falling behind. Freed from any caps, military planners would likely advocate for building more warheads and developing more advanced delivery systems, sparking a costly and destabilizing action-reaction cycle. Another grave risk is the loss of transparency and predictability that the treaty's verification regime currently provides. Without the on-site inspections, data exchanges, and notifications mandated by New START, both Washington and Moscow would lose crucial insight into each other's nuclear activities. This information vacuum would breed suspicion and mistrust. Each side would be forced to rely on its national technical means, such as satellites, which can be less reliable and more ambiguous than on-the-ground checks. In a crisis, this lack of verified information could lead to worst-case assumptions, dramatically increasing the risk of a miscalculation that could escalate toward nuclear use. Furthermore, the end of the treaty would likely accelerate the development and deployment of novel and exotic weapon systems designed to circumvent existing defenses and surprise an adversary. Both Russia and the United States are already investing in hypersonic weapons, unmanned underwater vehicles, other advanced technologies. Without the stabilizing framework of an arms control treaty, the incentive to rush these destabilizing weapons into service would grow stronger. The introduction of such systems, whose speed and trajectory make them difficult to detect and counter, would compress decision-making timelines for national leaders and elevate the danger of a preemptive or accidental war. Finally, the collapse of New START would send a damaging message to the rest of the world about the commitment of the major nuclear powers to disarmament and non-proliferation. It could weaken the broader global non-proliferation regime, as other nations might conclude that if the largest nuclear states are unwilling to restrain themselves, there is less reason for non-nuclear states to forego developing their own arsenals. At the heart of any successful arms control treaty is the principle of verification, which can be summed up in the old Russian proverb famously used by President Ronald Reagan: trust but verify. The New START treaty was built on this foundation with a robust regime of on-site inspections and data exchanges designed to ensure that neither side could cheat without being detected. These verification measures are not just technical procedures. They are the essential mechanisms that build confidence and foster the mutual trust necessary for the treaty to function. Without them, the agreement is little more than a collection of promises on paper. However, this critical verification architecture has been severely compromised in recent years. In August 2022, Russia announced it was temporarily suspending its cooperation with the on-site inspection provisions of the treaty, citing travel restrictions and other logistical hurdles imposed by the United States and its allies in response to the war in Ukraine. While Moscow claimed this was a temporary and forced measure, the suspension has effectively blinded both sides to the on-the-ground reality of each other's nuclear forces. The flow of data has also been disrupted, further eroding the transparency that the treaty was designed to provide. This suspension of inspections has created a significant trust deficit that now hangs over any discussion of extending the treaty. U.S. officials have stated that Russia is not in compliance with its obligations due to its refusal to allow inspections to resume. From the American perspective, agreeing to an extension while these verification activities remain paused would be untenable. It would mean accepting a treaty that lacks its most crucial enforcement mechanism, creating a dangerous precedent where one side can unilaterally halt its obligations. The decision of whether to accept Russia's offer for a one-year extension of the New START treaty presents a complex dilemma with compelling arguments on both sides. Those who advocate accepting the offer, even with its challenges, emphasize the immense value of buying time. A one-year pause would prevent the world from plunging off a treaty cliff in February 2026, preserving the last remaining limits on the world's two largest nuclear arsenals. This breathing room could be used to de-escalate current tensions and create a more stable environment for negotiating a longer follow-on agreement. It would keep the door open for diplomacy rather than letting it slam shut. Proponents say even a flawed treaty is better than no treaty at all. Maintaining basic numerical caps, even without immediate inspections, provides a baseline of stability and a shared reference point. It would signal a mutual desire to avoid an all-out, unconstrained arms race, which would be costly and dangerous for both sides. A short-term extension could be a crucial confidence-building measure, a small island of cooperation in a sea of hostility. It would preserve the treaty's legal framework, making it easier to reactivate provisions, including inspections, if politics improve. On the other hand, there are powerful reasons for caution and skepticism. Critics argue that accepting without resuming inspections rewards Russia for non-compliance and sets a dangerous precedent. It could let Russia continue strategic modernization under a veil of secrecy while the United States remains constrained. An extension without verification is, they say, a hollow agreement creating a false sense of security. Some argue it may be better to let the treaty expire and instead strengthen U.S. strategic forces and intelligence capabilities to manage a world without formal arms control limits. Caution is also warranted given Russia's broader behavior, including its war in Ukraine and development of new weapon systems not fully covered by the treaty. Some policymakers say negotiations must start from strength-demanding concrete concessions, starting with full restoration of inspections. Rushing into a simple extension could be seen as weakness and might embolden Russia to continue aggressive policies.